Welcome to CharacterSelect. My name is Dave, and this is Game Dev Tycoon, which a lot of people have played on YouTube, and I freaking love this game. I own it on the iPad in addition to owning it on the PC because I love it so much, and I really just wanted to play this game. The last two games that I recorded for single shots were both management games, so I figured, let's just do the trifecta. Alright, so let's give our company a name. Our company name is CharacterSelect, and our player name is Dave! With an exclamation point. Make it a dun. Close enough. Gotta go with the sweater vest. Alright, we're gonna change this to 42 years. Let's not do pirate mode, because pirate mode is hilarious. Yes. Ding, ding. Alright, so here we are. We're dude in the garage building our own games. We're going to make our very first game, which is going to be, wow, those are some weird choices. We're going to do a hunting game. It's going to be a simulation. And simulation works well on PC, so we will do that. This is going to be Huck Dunt. So as you can see, I've played this game a lot. I know a lot about how to make a good game in this. Gameplay is very important, engine is pretty important, story and quest is not important. Excellent. I'm going to go with probably some weird choices in this one, just because it's more fun that way. Level design is pretty important. Dialogue is not important at all. Nobody cares what that dog has to say in Huck Dunt. Ooh, make sure you pronounce that properly. Jeez. And then graphics are super important, sound is important, and world design, not really. Boop, ba-doop, boop, ba-doo, ding! 1, 2, 3. So, for anybody that doesn't know how this game is played, basically, you're designing games and deciding how much time and effort you want to put into each new thing. In our case, we had 13 design points and 12 technology points. A game can be technologically very powerful while being design-wise very lame, which is fine. And the vice versa. It can be design-wise very pretty while being technologically not very impressive. Think of games like Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger has an amazing amount of design, but it doesn't really have a lot of impressive technology behind it, compared to a game like Doom 3, which has a lot of impressive technology, but the design kind of fell flat because the story wasn't that great and all that wonderful stuff. So that's basically what we're looking at. But let's see what the people think. 9, 8, 9, 9. Whew, 8.75 for a first release. Not bad. So you can generate a game report and try to find out, you know, what worked, what didn't. CharacterSelect, a newcomer in the game industry, has just released their first game, Huck Dunt. This game received favorable reviews. With such a good start, CharacterSelect are sure to gain fans quickly. So you can see up here we have our cache. We sold 6,127 units on our first week on the market. We made it into the charts at number 15. That's actually pretty good for an indie. We now have 46 fans, so you can see our fans here. Timeline. Hey, we sold over 10,000 units. Sweet. So the game reports basically tell you what you should know about this game, what you've learned. Things like simulation and hunting is a great combination, or simulation games work well on PC. Engine seems to be quite important for this type of game, which is simulation games. And then you can take what you've learned, these research points, and turn them into other things. For example, construction simulation, or aliens, or spy, which we're going to research. Also, this game does look very different from the last time I played it. It actually looks like the iPad version, where they added a bunch of icons to make things easier to see. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we've researched a new topic, so let's pick a topic. Spy, adventure. On Well, we've got enough money now, and the G64 does have more of a market share, but it does have a dev cost of $20,000 as opposed to the PC, which only has a dev cost of $5,000. But let's see if we can't capitalize on this market share. We will call this... I'm terrible at names. Walther PPK... No, Walther Pep Kick. Cool. Walther Pep Kick. Spy name for the future generations. Alright, so engine's not terribly important. Gameplay for adventure games is not terribly important. The story is what compels you about an adventure game. So as you can see, we get these little bubbles popping up every time we do certain things in the game. These are adding to our design, research, technology, and our bugs. Bugs are kind of important. We'll go over that in a second. Level design is not too important. Dialogues are super important. So bugs just develop naturally through the game dev cycle. Nothing much you can do about that. But once the game is done, you do spend some time ironing them out. All right, how much did Duck Hunt make? Ooh, $134,000. Nice. World design, super important. Graphic, pretty important. Sound, not really. So we're building up research points. Our goal right now is to get 50 research points. So now the bugs are actually being worked out of the game. This is not how actual game development goes. I wish it was, but it's insanely more complicated than this. All right. So now we're just sitting here waiting. Come on. There we go. Now we can generate a game report. Walther Pep Kick. Man, people did not like it. 6, 6, 6, 6. So the important thing to remember about this scale in this game, and this took me a long time to figure out, is that it's a true 10-point scale. If a game is a 2 or a 3, it's garbage. If a game is a 6 or a 7, it's just okay. If a game is an 8, 9, or a 10, then it's really good. So when you get a 6, it means that you've got a good game on your hands. It's just not gonna stand out. So as you'll see, I still get 49 fans from that, and it's still selling pretty decently. The trick with the rating scale is that it's less about the superhero action. It's less about the getting the 9 or the 10s than it is about getting the 7s, 8s, 9s, or 10s. Or even the 6s. 6s work too. None of these are really good for action, but we'll do that. Superheroes RPG. I need a... let's see. Meteor Punch Man. There we go. It's a game about a guy that punches meteors. Don't look too far beyond that, guys. It's pretty basic. So right now there's not that much in expenses. Basically, I have to pay $8,000 a month for living expenses. Hardware say that this might spell the end of competing hardware manufacturers. So basically that news report is saying that the G64 or the Commodore 64 is basically dominating the computer market, which it did. However, as we all know today, the Commodore 64 is no longer there. So what happened? This game basically starts in, like, I want to say like 1983 or 1984, just after the Great Video Game Crash, where the only game systems that are actually viable are the Commodore 64 and the PC in the US. Then Nintendo gets introduced, Sega comes out with their follow-up, Nintendo introduces the Game Boy, Sega comes out with their follow-up, Sega comes out with the Genesis, all that wonderful stuff. You're basically going through gaming history in the US. That's the key. Because if you look at the history of game design or the history of the video game market in Europe, it's vastly different. Like, the Nintendo was not even remotely as big a deal as it was in North America. New topic, new combo. Still haven't gotten enough to get a level on those. And wait for the week to end so I can do a game report. Alright, Meteor Punch Man. Gonna be a good game, right? 8. 7. 8. 8. Alright, 7.75. That's pretty good. Well, Walther Pepkick got us 134,000 in sales. Not bad. According to rumors, the Japanese company Ninvento is planning to launch its very own home gaming console. The Ninvento is known for the successful arcade game Dinky King. Many industry experts doubt that home gaming consoles will take off, but we're eager to see what Ninvento will deliver. And it kind of was a big deal for Nintendo to actually do that, because, man, you're talking like just after the great video game crash of 1983, when Atari was so convinced that they had superiority that they made more games than they had consoles. And it doesn't work that way. Hi, just contracting and yeah. Okay. Alright, so now that we have 58 research points, we can design a custom game engine. This is where you start making a lot of money. A custom game engine is basically, think about older games. The original Doom ran on the build engine, as did Duke Nukem 3D. Stuff like that. You've got the Unreal Engine these days, the Crytek engine, all that kind of stuff. So a custom game engine is what you build your graphic, or build your game on. And we're going to call this... No, fucking... Thank you. Okay. We're going to call this the Select Engine V1. It's going to cost $90,000 to make it. Why does it cost money to make an engine? I don't know. It just does. Alright, so Meteor Punch Man is off the market. It got us $113,000. Today, Ninvento has confirmed recent rumors and announced their plans to release a new home gaming console called TES in the coming months. The console features cartridge-based games and a uniquely designed controller. When this game first came out, you had to research joysticks, mice, controller support, all that stuff. It's now all been abstracted out, which actually I feel like is one of the biggest problems with this game, is that a lot of what happened in the video games industry is abstracted out. I want to see some of the stuff that people had to contend with. I want to see you have to figure out how to make a joystick work. I mean, don't get me wrong, this game is... I give this game an 8.5 out of 10. Don't worry about that. 8.75 out of 10. But at the same time, I kind of wish that when it came to game dev, it got more into the dev than the game dev management, I guess, if that makes sense. Alright, but we're going to make a construction game. It'll be a simulation on the PC using the Select Engine V1. We will call it Skim Milk Tower. Yeah, that works. Cool. Great at game. I'm great at names, guys. Alright. So this is a simulation. We already kind of know the deal with this one. But now we have the options for a linear story and a save game. The other problem that I have with this game is that these are straight bonuses. If you can afford them, there's no reason not to include them, even if it doesn't make sense. Why would you have a linear story in a construction simulation game? Why aren't you just building a tower? Because it gets you more points. It's a problem that I have with this game, and you know, it is what it is. I've been sitting for a long time. Graphics, sound, world design. So, I mean, it's great that you unlock various things that you can add to your game, but basically you just want to add the things that are the most expensive because they get you the best reviews. New topic, new combo. Everything levels up except 2D graphics, because I just started using this. Game tutorials and mono sound. which costs a lot of money to research, so we're not going to do those yet. Thief. Aliens. Alien Action would be a good one. First reviews of our newly released game, Skim Milk Tower. The other thing is, the reviews are based not just on the game that you just released in a strict comparison, but in fact on the game that you released before. This is a straight 8. I'm willing to take that. But it's based on the games that you released before. If your game is functionally, in terms of design and technology, 120% better than the last game, that's your metric for getting 10s. But it has to be 120% better just in terms of the numbers, or you're never going to see the 10s. And I mean, I think it is what it is, and like I said, I love this game to death, but at the same time, it's frustrating that those are the mechanics. So, I mean, you can't have it all. But this is a game more about the management of a game development studio than it is about game development, because that would get horribly meta. Okay, so let's research. Oh, and the other thing is I can't actually put these into a game unless I develop an entirely new game engine for a lot of money. That's not going to work for me. Alright, so we just researched aliens, so let's build an alien game. We will call it Alien Shooster. Aliens. Action. TES. So here's the thing. It costs $30,000 to develop for the Nintendo, but a license costs 80 grand as an upfront cost. That is huge. But it has 33% of the frickin' market, so why wouldn't you? Yeah, it's good. Dialogues are super not important. Artificial intelligence is. Level design is pretty important. But yeah, as you level up your skills in developing certain games, you can unlock new things that you can put into engines. How much did that earn me? 170? Alright. So I'm not losing money on these games, but I'm definitely not making a lot of money. New records for everything, though. Sweet. And later you have to manage your marketing cycle and whether or not a game is going to be hyped. And if hype gets too high and the game sucks, then it counts against you. All kinds of stuff like that. First reviews. It's an 8. Another 8. Another 8. A 9. 8.25. Sweet. Generate game report. Alien Shooster. Look how well it's selling. It's working pretty good. It's working overtime. I think I just made back my dev costs in it too. Sweet. Also, the reason that the Nintendo worked, for those of you who don't know, the reason that Nintendo is credited with reviving the home video game console industry is because Nintendo put incredibly strict controls on games and what would be released on their system. They basically said, hey, you want to be a developer for the Nintendo? You can make 5 games a year at a time when development cycles were like 6 weeks. People begged and pleaded and said, please, please let us build another game. Just 2 more games per year and we can make so much more money. And Nintendo said, no. If you want to release games on the Nintendo, you get 5 games a year at most. And people started developing ways around that. If you've ever looked back at old Nintendo games and you're like, what's this Ultra Games label and where the hell did they go? Ultra Games was an offshoot of Konami, because Konami was releasing games, and then Ultra Games was releasing 5 more games, so that they could get more games to market. All of them had to pass Nintendo's scrutiny, though, and Nintendo had the final say on whether or not a game could make it on their console. And that's one of the biggest reasons Nintendo was so good at reviving the video game console, because they took such a strong controlling hand and said everything has to meet our standards or you're going nowhere. It's a big deal. The history of all of this stuff is actually really interesting. Once Sega got on the scene and started having less strict controls, you would think that people would move towards Sega so that they could release more games, but Nintendo had the market shares, so Nintendo was willing to keep, or just force people to stick with them by saying, hey, if you develop games for Sega, we're not letting you develop games for our system, ever. And people were like, well shit, Nintendo has 75% of the home video game console market. We're sticking with Nintendo. So... and that didn't really begin to change until like the early 90s when the Genesis came out. It wasn't until Sonic the Hedgehog, in 1992, that things really started going towards Sega's way. And even then, they still had to contend with the fact that the one guy in Walmart that was responsible for letting them put games on, or for letting developers and companies put products on their shelves. One guy in freaking in Walmart said, "I don't want Sega, I want Nintendo," and Sega couldn't convince him otherwise. It's like the myriad of crap that you have to go through in order to Disastrous Adventure. That sounds interesting. In order to all the stuff that Sega had to do in order to actually make it to market is super interesting. Disaster Adventure. We will call this City Collapse. Cool. That's a good name, right? Or the fact that everybody knows about Nintendo and how they stabbed Sony in the back, because which actually does come up in this game. I love games that come with a TS, and playing with a controller is so much more fun than on a keyboard. That actually comes up in this game is Nintendo. Everybody was like, oh, Nintendo's going to be working with Sony to create an add-on to the Super Nintendo called the Nintendo PlayStation. And then they stabbed Sony in the back and went with Philips, and that worked out so well for them. But what a lot of people don't know is that Sega then aggressively started marketing to Sony. Sega of America started aggressively marketing to Sony and saying, you know, if Nintendo stabbed you in the back, why don't you come work with us? Because we're not going to do the same to you. And ultimately, the guy that was behind the trying to market the PlayStation was like, yes, absolutely. Sega of America, we will work with you. Sega of Japan said no. Killed the deal just outright. And that's why the PlayStation is its own console. Because Nintendo and Sega both fucked up hardcore and let Sony, and thought that Sony would go away. And Sony did not go away. Quirky but good. 6.75. Damn it. And it'll still earn me some money. New topic, horror. Sweet. Generate game report for City Collapse. How did this game collapse on us? How? I ask you, how? Okay combination. Alright. Excuse me, have you not played Disaster Report? Horror... Action? Great combo. Sweet. None of these consoles really support action very well. We'll just do it on this one. Just need to... Oh, nope, gotta name it. We will call this Blood Splurts. It's a good name. But yeah, if you are interested in finding out what happened during the console wars, which was Sega versus Nintendo from about 92 to 98. Most of what I just told you came from Target Marketing. Most of what I just told you came from a book called Console Wars, which is, if you're interested in nonfiction at all, is an amazing read. This is going to become a Character Select book report at this point. But it's, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, it could be very... It's interesting to see where that stuff came from, or how the video game console as we, or the video game market as we know it now, basically was developed. Like, the fact that games are released on major game releases are usually on a Tuesday. That's because when Sonic 2 came out, it was the first worldwide worldwide release to all happen on the same day, and it happened on Sonic Tuesday, which was a stupid marketing campaign, but everybody was getting the game on a Tuesday, and now games are released on Tuesday by default, which obviously isn't always the case with Steam and stuff like that, but usually the bigger releases happen on the Tuesday. Did you know that way back in the past, Target had a policy that was much like LL Bean's, which was, if you bought it from us, then you can return it. No questions asked. Don't need a receipt, nothing. And Nintendo came up with the 90-day return policy and tried to sell it to Target, and Target said no, and now everybody has a 90-day return policy. Or a 30-day return policy. I do need to research target audience. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we have now in the games industry, a lot of the traditions and culture that we have was developed during the console wars in the 1990s, and just continues to this day. It's super interesting if you're into that sort of stuff. I'm a big history buff of all kinds. I like World War II. I like modern history. So, I mean, that sort of stuff is fascinating to me. We're going to call this the Select Engine V2. Slowly developing. Oh no, stop scratching your head. Also, it is really hot in here. Like, sweating. It's uncomfortable. Casual games. I do need to research that as well. Because guess what games work best on the Nintendo? Casual games. Casual games. Invest money in that. Yay, $210,000. Alright, develop a new game for young people. We'll call it a vocabulary game. Casual. On the see, casual. And young is the best mix. PC works best with mature audiences. And we will use the Select Engine V2, and we will call this... Where in the alphabet is Carmen San... No. Is C San Diego? Damn it. Fine. Letter Munchers. The platform Master V by Vina has been released. Ba-ding. Game tutorials. Engine, I actually don't know. I don't think it's actually that important. Gameplay is important. Level design, artificial intelligence, dialogues. Casual games are boring because they take nothing to develop. has stirred up the market worldwide. Industry experts say the console is not very well marketed in North America, but that it will flourish in other parts of the world. If they developed this game so that or if they offered like an additional scenario to this game that basically allowed you to do it in the European or the Japanese sectors, that would be cool as shit. Oh no, I introduced a new bug. Fix it. Thank you. It's the game your mom will love. And it's also fun, question mark? So 2D graphics V3 requires more rating or research points than I have. 9. 10. 10. 10. That is a 9.75, and let's just see what happens with this. Bing! And we now have $1 million. Made quite a name for yourself and saved up a lot of capital. If you want to grow the company further, then moving into a new office is the next step. I found the perfect office situated in the technology park. Would you like to move your company to the next level? The key to doing that as early as possible is recognizing that casual games and young games work best on the Nintendo. So, having made it to the big leagues, we can now actually hire people, which requires that we train ourselves in staff management. But basically, this is where the game starts to get more complicated. I can hire up to 4 people to work with us. And we can develop new games, and basically our next goal is to make $8 million so that we can... $10 million? A lot of money. So that we can move into a new position. Or a new company, and basically dominate the world. But yeah, that's Game Dev Tycoon. Like I said, I play this game a lot, and I threw in a little history lesson there. Kinda didn't mean to do that. Hope you enjoyed that one as well. As with all single shots, if you'd like to see me play more of this game or hear me bloviate more about the history of game development, which I'm not sure what else I'd talk about, but then let me know in the comments down below and I'll do some more of this. And yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to click that like button down below if you liked it. And don't forget to develop your own games. Those are the best ones. 10 out of 10.